you're a League player, especially someone who plays ranked, you're probably familiar by now with the term winners and losers queue, a conspiracy that is both supported and neglected by the League community, which holds the assumption that Riot manipulates the matchmaking system to make players play more and make them addicted to the game. Each of the oppositions back their positions with proofs and examples, in addition of a good chunk of the community who truly do not know which side is right or wrong, making this conspiracy truly intriguing. Which of the sides have the correct answer that's been wondered for seasons?
Both.
Let's break down first how this alleged system works. If, for example, someone's skill level is around, let's say, gold, whenever they approach escaping that elo, they would suffer from a series of unfortunate teammates that will lead them to lose up to a dozen games and sometimes even more, as reported, making them drop divisions back to bottom and sometimes even demote them completely from that elo, which could be mental taxing for some. Nonetheless, the players would insist on performing relatively good on those games and blame it on their teammates' consistent atrocious performance. These players do understand that bad games can happen, but to be matched with teammates who constantly perform horribly over a series of games is in itself suspicious enough. These players also insist on stating that their teammates would feel like they are far more below their skill level, which doesn't make any sense because their visible rank is the same and their MMR is mostly the same as well. Which kinda brings the question of how can Riot constantly match players over a series of games with teammates that are supposed to be within the same skill brackets, yet somehow they would still perform poorly than intended. Some stated that after checking each one's profile and match history after such ridiculous games, they would find the enemy team mostly on a winning streak, unlike their teammates, meaning that yes, they could be within the same skill bracket, but the morals could play a huge role. Matched with winners or tilted players can indeed be a decisive factor, but this stance is contradicting enough to be refused as a proof, due to the inconsistency of its occurrence. Some stated that they won versus teams who themselves had a positive match history, unlike the case of their own teams, in addition of winning unexpected games with and against unfair team compositions, which made them starting to simply replying back to these as so-called excuses or victimizations as skill issue or get good. Adding on top of it, how can some players manage to reach the higher echelons of skill level every season and every split? The backers of the winners and losers queue conspiracies state that this is a sign that the disbelievers do not know what they are talking about. To further explain, they claim that the system only triggers when someone reaches their skill level. Someone whose challenger won't get stuck in gold or whatever. They will eventually climb up to their respected elo until it happens. For example, some do reach masters but never grandmasters, and even get demoted to diamond only to get back to masters again. Some are grandmasters but never challengers. Some are challengers but never reach the 1000 LP mark, which is desired by plenty. If someone was, for example, hard stuck diamond for a while, then they eventually get to masters, which they desired for a long time. They didn't do it by becoming bad. They improve, and masters now are their new skill level, and they would face this inevitable swing of losers and winners queue over and over. They understand that getting good enough can get you out of your skill bracket, obviously. No one ever improved exponentially only to remain in the same elo, or even worse, decay. They would climb up until they face somewhat equally skilled players, only to be manipulated to play more games than needed to climb further. This system does not work only in lower elos, but across the entire ladder, regardless of someone's skill level. And their optimal defense of this is why, after losing a bunch of games that can be tied to someone's fault or poor performance, except the lack of excellence and perfection, yet even that won't be enough with certain teammates, how can then you would start winning games only to get back to where you were, and games would feel beyond on easy mode, to the point where some stated that they would perform not even that good, yet they would somehow still win, a performance that, if compared with how they performed in their previous lost games, would be an acceptable reason of why they lost and stand accountable for it. How the doubters of this conspiracy attack this defense of theirs? Well, it's the MMR. The matchmaking system balances a game around a certain skill level. Each player of the game must belong there, and thus explains the rarity of finding a match at the top of the ladder. And each player is there for a reason. For example, the skill bracket, regardless of where it belongs in the ladder, is arranged from the lowest value to the highest, and those players could be distributed differently, because the ideal scenario would be to have someone teaming up and facing players with the exact same skill level, but that's like finding a grain of sand in a desert. But when that skill level is a bracket consisted of a lot of values, plenty players could fit in there. So sometimes a player can be approximately in the middle of this estimated skill bracket. Sometimes they are the one who are considered the least skilled player in that bracket, and sometimes the opposite. So for example, if a team that entirely belongs in the upper half faces a team that entirely belongs in the lower half, who should win? It's obvious. So how the distribution is done? Is it done fairly? No, it's more like that's not even the right question. It's more whether the rewards are fair or not. The LP. If a player gets smashed versus players that the matchmaking system thinks they should win against, yet somehow they lose, they would lose more LP than usual. On top of it, it would trigger the system that if this keeps happening, then maybe this player belongs slightly lower in the ladder. When they win, they would get a small amount of LP compared to what they would usually get, and it would inform the system that they should face such skill level players less, unless they are there to test other players. It's as if the system is using them to test other players' skill level, and the other way around. It's like a rabbit hole. It's the same when they win a game versus players that they shouldn't win against. They would win more LP than usual, and it would trigger the system that if this keeps happening, then they might belong a bit higher in the ladder. Because it's not just about one game. The matchmaking system can doom a player just because of one unfortunate game that they lost, but it has the reason to if it would happen on a scale of games. The same thing when a player wins a game despite the odds. The matchmaking system won't consider them a smurf or someone that belongs higher immediately, unless they repeat it often. So it's like a constant non-ending check of everyone's skill level to spot, detect, and seek accuracy, which gives the illusion of winners and losers queue. On a side note, the beauty of the game is when everyone have around the same skill level instead of feeling gaps. So back to that defense. Those games lost in a row made the system think that somehow they got placed higher by a mistake, thus why they are losing, so they belong lower. Yet by being lower in the skill level, they will start facing players that they would easily clap, thus why the games would feel easy, until they eventually get back up to their respected estimated spots. There's also the assumption that the matchmaking system knows each player's champ pool and how they perform with and against certain team compositions, which could support the possibility of rigging the games to control its outcomes. For example, if someone picks only assassins, they might get mashed versus someone who's good in dealing with assassins. And there you go. That's one down in the team, no? No. I think it's becoming obvious which side is more rational, I would say. And I'm gonna top it with an example. Let's say we have Bob, okay? Bob is a cool guy. Bob actually goes out to touch grass, unlike some of you. The reality is that when Bob goes out to interact with the real world, he won't find people cherry-picked for him and everyone is good and won't do him harm. Sure, mostly he's gonna find nice people. I mean, hopefully. But he can meet people who might be rude or immoral, a possibility that some might treat him badly or hurt him, etc, etc. The same thing goes when Bob heads back home to play some league. The matchmaking system won't give him players that are cherry-picked. Some might be playing drunk or high, some are first time in a champion, some didn't even invest the proper amount of time or effort to master their champ pool to deliver the best they can. Some could be good players, truly good players, but with a weak mindset. One play goes wrong and then poof, they would snap. So why we accept the reality of the first example but be skeptical about the second one? Think about it. You can have a full day of meeting and interacting with bad people, eating bad food, tripping on the floor, meeting a lady that you found cute so you raise her up and date her only to get dumped eventually. Okay. Some might say,
Also, how do you explain that it only happens whenever I want to reach my desired elo, huh? Explain this to me, Mrs. Smartass. Fuck you and Bob. Okay, sorry, Bob, sorry. But fuck this guy.
well, It only happens cause that's the peak of your skill level, and you will surpass it the moment you improve, just how like others do. And the reason why it happens only when you wanna finally escape your current elo and not when you are below, because there, you are considered better than your opponents. The chances of you losing are low because you have more agency on those games, but by climbing up, your opponents will start to have more agency until it somewhat matches yours. That's why you can't really shift the current of the games as easily as before. Losing when you wanna break a record is the one that makes sense, not the other way around. Plus, you can throw a dice, and let's say getting the numbers 6, 5, and 4 would win you a lottery, 1, 2, and 3 won't. You get 10 attempts. How many times you would win? Win them all? Lose them all? 50-50? Mostly won or mostly lost? Now, does it resemble to your match history? Or you would say that
No, the dice is rigged and have some sort of a magnetic device within it that is altering the way I throw it by controlling the...
That's the point. When we can see the entire process or mechanism behaving and interacting in front of us, we accept the reality. Mostly. But when stuff are hidden behind the curtains, these conspiracies come up. This is a logical method to tackle this conspiracy instead of just asking the obvious questions like why Riot would do such a thing, or wondering isn't their goal is to make the game more enjoyable if this is truly an issue to some people. Bro, you could lose 10 times in a row by throwing that dice. At best you could say,
hey, that's pretty good.
oh, damn, what a bad luck, right? Or ascend to comprehend and master every single bit about physics and mass, frequency and vibrations, maths and rats, what lays on our eyes and beyond, calling Heimerdinger and teaming up to figure out how we would make that 6 flat surface shape submerge to your reality and drop in your favor. Which leads us to the conclusion. You have the option to be better and have more control over your games. I don't know about the potential though, but for real, you have an option. Contributing efforts, energy, time, money, whatever, to master something and be skilled at it will reward you. Hard work pays off. Performing good on something that you didn't even take seriously is what's considered abnormal. So those who were using this conspiracy as a wind wall and hide behind it to cover their lack of competence, well, it's on fucking cooldown now. Permanently. And to those who ignored its legitimacy, why didn't make a video about it? As always, you know the tradition guys, let me know in the comments which side were you and whether you got convinced or not, even if you didn't, to be honest, and have something that I didn't cover. Keep it safe everyone, peace out.